computing. We want to have community support networking and hiring. Only a $20 annual membership. Our upcoming talks are on the meetup site. And we have 200 or so of our more recent talks on our YouTube channel. We generally have 2 monthly meetings, but the day of the month kind of changes based on our location sponsor. So what kind of works out with that. So sometimes we've been changing things around a little bit then. Go ahead, next one. So meetings, we have an ACM Chai perspective in assistive technology on Tuesday, April 9th. SIGGRAPH on Thursday, April 18th. AI for learning photorealistic 3D digital humans from In the Wild data. So that sounds like an interesting one for an AI group. The venue's TBD, but take a look at the meetup link. It's not our regular SFA ACM, but ACM has many different factors. And so there's another SIGGRAPH link.
You think it'll be South Bay?
What's that?
You think it'll be in the South Bay?
I'm not sure. So the venue is TBD. So if nothing else, it should start off being virtual. And then I think there's, I talked to Carl and he said they were looking for venue. And then for this meeting, next month, we just got confirmation from Hacker Dojo tonight. So we're doing it Wednesday, April 24th. So customizable RAG workflows with Regis evaluation. So that'd be evaluating the accuracy of your lookups. So you're not just doing the lookups, but you're kind of evaluating accuracy. So that helps you as you're tweaking things, how they can improve. And that's by Christy in her picture. Next slide. So you can chat in Zoom. I'll be watching that and we can answer questions to the moderator. Also, if there's job announcements. So I'll go across the room. And if anybody wants to raise your hand, I'll go from one side to another. If your company is hiring, you want to give a job announcement, go ahead. So anybody, or if you have other interesting meetups, conferences, things in the area people might want to hear in this room. So any job hiring? Over here, any job hiring? Okay. So I'm working on something myself with Pivot XY. I've brought on 2 data scientists so far, and we're looking for other people. Something else that might be of interest would also be a user interface person. So what we're doing at Pivot XY, just for very brief, is we're a co-pilot for the C-suite. Now, companies increase their valuation to the top 25 percentile of their peer group. And so that's our elevator pitch and what we're doing. So there's LLMs involved, there's RAG lookup involved, a lot of analysis, strategy, reasoning, rules, things like that are involved as well. Next, honor system. I didn't finish. So the food is kind of there's an honor system jar, so we're suggesting $2 a slice. So we're just paying for this. The $20 membership really doesn't cover that much in the way of pizza, to be honest. So you can kind of contribute proportional to the amount you eat or drink. That'd be great. Next slide. So now I'd like to introduce Boris and his talk, leveraging medical discourse to answer complex questions.
Right.
Yes. Actually, I had last month and it must have disappeared, but I'd be happy to talk about Hacker Dojo. Does anybody want to speak about Hacker Dojo?
No. Basically runs the dojo.
So if you want to say a few words about the dojo?
Has anyone ever heard of Hacker Dojo? Has anyone ever heard of Hacker Dojo? Yes. Is this your first time here? No? Okay, few. Well, if you didn't know, we started in 2009 and we're a nonprofit co-working space. So if you are a fan of tech and people getting into the tech industry and startups, this is the place for you to be. Big companies like Pinterest started working out from here, and many other unicorns succeeded because they were given a space where they could work and essentially work on their startups. So if that's something that you're interested in joining or supporting, we would love your support. We're currently fundraising. Or if you're would like to join, we have as a member, it's $150 per month. But we currently have a promo which gives you $50 off the first month. So, and that gives you 24/7 access to the entire building. Okay, any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Have a great rest of your night.
So to introduce Boris's talk tonight. So medical discourse between the patient and doctor is what he's focusing on. He wants to propose a unified framework at the meta level using language objects. It looks to fill a gap between computational discourse and medical discourse. Look at how information is passed in the hospital setting. He wants to encode features, kind of social interaction features, critical discourse features, metaphoric, pain. Like a lot of times the hospital will ask you, what's your pain level on a 1 to 10 scale? Focus on medical question answering. And he'll be doing comparisons of performance and then proposing a RAG architecture for leveraging discourse analysis. So that's about the talk. And then a little bit about Boris. He's been in Silicon Valley over 25 years, including eBay and Oracle, and as well as a number of startups. He's helped a lot of his work, especially in natural language processing and related, has helped 4+ startups exit. And then also he's has quite a few patents, also a number of books. Some of the books are Developing Enterprise Chatbots, a 2-volume monograph, AI for CRM, Customer Relationship Management, a book on computational autism, and a monograph, AI for Health Applications and Management. And then there's also his LinkedIn profile, if you want to connect and stay in touch. So he's been a prior speaker a number of times, but he's got new content for tonight. He was also presenting at the AAAI conference, the Stanford Symposium for the last 3 days. So he's presenting Tuesday at that. So thank you, Boris. Welcome.
Hello. Okay, leveraging medical discourse to answer complex questions. Traditionally, medical discourse is something studied in humanities. And I, for many years, for different applications, was doing discourse analysis computationally. And I was always interested, how can we connect these two? Because again, medical discourse is a very broad social, not a precise, very broad philosophical approach. But discourse over the last few years, due to linguists, is a very precise computational.
I was just going to try to play with the PowerPoint so the audience can see a large screen.
Okay, I can.
But if you want to keep talking, I'll see if I can try not to interrupt you.
So attempt here to apply discourse on the one hand, see which discourse analysis and which discourse processing means are available in play. On the other hand, try to survey and capture literature of medical discourse. Again, it's all about humanities, nothing computational, and see what kind of computational help you can get. Because I mean, people worked on it. People considered the corpus of research, considered like doctor-patient interaction. So it's a big area, but unfortunately, I mean, everything else, like a lot of computational stuff. That's one side. Another side, in general, talking about syntactic, semantic, and discourse level. semantic and syntactic level these days covered by large language models pretty well. Because mask language model, you predict next token, or you, because of the model, you predict next meaning. But that is not applicable to discourse. So discourse is
I'm trying to
much
open up
higher
the
level of
previous presentation.
so, in terms of syntax and semantic,
These
LLM
fonts are just so
do-
incredibly small, it's
LLM
hard to
do
read
impressive
anything.
things, but
I'm
you
trying to go
cannot have
into-
much control over discourse. You cannot say, for example, give me an answer with certain discourse logic. You just cannot. I mean, you can do it wrong, but it's not going to happen. So discourse is still something above and outside of LLM. So this is still something you can do. So these are two main motivations for discourse. Again, leverage.
No, I'm trying to mirror.
Many
This is a video recording.
40,
That's for
50
the
years,
audience.
this whole
So
discipline of
I'm just trying to
medical discourse, which is not
get the PowerPoint menu.
with modern computational tools and stuff which can work on top of LLM, because like these days we don't like go into syntax and try to improve phenomena, like discover something in syntax, hoping to improve LLM, because most likely it's already covered by learning. As LLM trains from huge corpus, syntactic relationship pretty much covered, semantic relationship covered, but discourse is a much higher level of abstraction, is not, just by the nature. We will discuss that discourse you can also do, you can encode discourse representation as tokens, and also build kind of language model on discourse level. But this is very specific. If you do that, then you lose what classical discourse, what classical LLMs are doing. Okay, so this is a long presentation. Since we don't have a big audience today, interrupt me. Let's have questions from. Okay, we start from definition of discourse. Variety of meanings. It's from historic moments, policies, political strategies, to narratives, text, speeches, and even broader language-related discussions include racial discourse, gender discourse, discussion on employment, a very broad sense. So, I mean, in a lot of senses, anti-computational, it's very broad, very ambiguous. But since there's a lot of phenomenology is accumulated, let's try to formalize and represent it and use it in some way. Media discourse, populist, historical, and more.
Just as a definition, syntaxes are do that as sentence level, discourse is more at a paragraph. So
Okay.
it's like a higher level.
So,
Could you repeat that?
okay, so syntax is a relationship between words without taking into account their meaning. Semantic is the relationship between meaning of words, like entities and their attributes. And discourse is the structure, how authors organize their thinking. So it's a much higher level. And again, discourse is not covered by LLM. Because LLM learns from huge amount of text, text generated by LLM, they have proper discourse, but we don't have control, okay? So that's the logic, yes.
Will you be sharing this or should take pictures?
Of course I will be sharing, of course, we'll post it to YouTube link
On
and,
the meetup site.
yes.
For this event, you scroll to the bottom, there's a comment section, you gotta add comments. And I would invite Boris to.
Yeah, I will
add
put-
link
yeah.
to the Slides.
So does medical discourse imply that at least one of the parties is professional? And
Yeah, in medical discourse, usually yes.
could you repeat the question? Yeah.
Yeah, for all the- all
So
the
for medical discourse, it's a hospital environment, it's a patient doctor interaction. And so, okay, problem formulation. So why? So one thing is we explore what philosophers of discourse observed and then formalize it. But what is the goal? The goal is answer questions. The goal is still the same. But now, because we have discourse, we can answer questions against long document. There's a huge problem with modern like RAG, how you split document into pieces. If you split into long pieces, then it's hard to find relevant part. If you split into short, it could be distributed through multiple. So it's still a very big and serious problem, how you split document into fragments, so you index it for large language model to retrieve. And discourse is a decent answer. At least discourse is a like meaningful answer, structured answer. Because the discourse is telling how documents are organized, what are the parts of documents, how they interconnected. So once you know what you're searching for, you can figure out which part of document, and that is our focus. So Q&A system must understand which pieces of documents contain what information. And to do that, we formalize discourse using discourse trees, like everything in trees. So we formalize understanding discourse structures and communication, answer questions, and this is applied, answering questions based on collection of documents where answers are distributed through distinct documents. And that's a very frequent thing. And a lot of problems finding, for example, using a vector database. These days, using a RAG architecture LLM and vector database. How does it know to get parts of answer, coordinated parts of answer from multiple documents? If we have many documents and and we have different answers from different documents, that's fine. But what if you need to get multi-hop one answer? To get this one answer, you need to consult multiple documents. That is very difficult for modern vector databases. But once you have discourse, it's a systematic way to say, okay, this is how documents are organized. So it should be in section 1 in document 1 and section 5 in document 7. Yes.
Do documents have just one discourse model tree, or can you have more?
Okay, so the question is, I will get there, but what is the discourse representation of a document? Usually, there's a relationship one paragraph, one tree. But then in documents have sections and sections has paragraphs. So think of documents as a multi-level hierarchy of trees.
I think I've got that. My question is, suppose it's Russian literature, you have multiple meanings.
Okay.
Plus everything that you've got, can you have trees in parallel, all of which dig into the same document?
Okay, very serious question. So if you have ambiguity, but ambiguity is semantic phenomenon, not discourse. It's a very good, but it's important to understand. Discourse is how author organize thought. And author organize your thoughts, assuming there are multiple meanings. So again, discourse doesn't have to maintain multiple, doesn't have to take care of ambiguity, because this is done on semantic level. And the LLMs are doing it well. So for discourse, luckily, we don't have to worry about ambiguity. Because again, it's just done on previous level. Thank you. So we're going to talk general discourse and medical discourse, discourse tree, and anatomy of answer. Very important question for modern. So we used to have classical search, like inverse index, Solr. It's essentially we index everything for each word. We set position in a document, which position, and which paragraph. Now, this whole thing is thrown away. We have a large language model and we have a vector database. But how do we know which part of answer is meaningful or not? This whole thing is lost. So I think I would expect that years will come till like modern RAG community will get to the quality of search we had before.
Is your power plugged in? Do you have on your battery pack?
Yes.
Honestly, it's a power.
No, I think it's my monitor. Yeah, my power is. So I need to do the error. We define discourse tree, RAG and discourse analysis, another important area. And then specifically what discourse tree of a medical complaint, encoding document structure, how it is done closer, like large language model, not with masking, not at word talking level, but discourse tree parts level, evaluation for question answering, and then finally dialogue management. So contribution, it's a medical discourse system, answer queries for unstructured and structured data, potential application of discourse features. And then we focus on medical features such as structure of patient interviews, metaphoric language, various communication modalities, discourse mechanism for pain, social context. talking about reading between the line, concealed implicit data. Then discourse can be work as substitution of common sense, and we know that language model has a lot of issues with common sense. And then just look at it from neurosymbolic paradigm. We have syntax and semantic covered by LLM, which is neural, and the discourse is a structure, it's a tree, so it's symbolic. So this whole thing, building discourse analysis on top of LLM, it's a neurosymbolic architecture. Important notion to understand what we're doing. We have language object and meta language. For example, we study English language in English language. For example, we study foreign language, Spanish language in English language. Then Spanish language is language object, which we are learning. And the English language, which we use for learning, is meta language. And that is important language object system of symbols, rules, and structures. Language object includes syntax and semantic. When we study English, we also describe in English, but we study English as language object, and we study its things and semantics. And then meta language, it's a above second level language used to talk or describe language object. Discuss features, structures, element of language object, analyzes, interprets, comments on language being studied. Question. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Question.
Yes.
So going back to the previous slide, just to have a tangible example on something. So if you have a paragraph,
Okay.
and then you say, however,
Yes.
or in contrast,
Okay.
then you continue,
Okay.
that would be a discourse marker, changing direction of your conversation.
Okay.
Would that be a language object?
Okay. So your text itself will be language object, but your observation that text there are two parts. One part, then however, second part, this observation, something, however, second part, that is meta language relative to language object.
Yep.
So the short discourse structure is meta level, and syntax and semantic is object level. So that's kind of how you position. Yes. Okay, let's do more questions because we don't have any. Yes,
Go ahead.
I will answer.
Okay. Foreign vector database and using multiple documents to answer the questions.
Yes.
So are you trying to get a deterministic answer to a question rather than an answer inferred from multiple documents?
Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, that's a good question. So the question is it a deterministic procedure? And the brief answer is yes, because understanding discourse structure, we kind of know what lives in which document, what lives in each section and paragraph. So then we know where to search for. In this case, it is deterministic versus generative answer, which just takes phrases from we don't know where. Because if we have generated answer obtained by large language model, it's very hard to figure out the source. But if you have discourse representation, we know from where it comes. So again, building discourse on top of LLM, one advantage we should mention, it's citation and explainability. We know where we get this information. Because once document is structured, we know at least which part of document is used. Okay.
Won't LLMs of the future comprehend meta language and with large contexts automatically be able to approximate function for discourse representation and organized discourse?
Oh, wow, that's a complex question. The question is can future LLMs also cover discourse? I hope so, but that's not, I'm going to do a little bit like some attempts at it, but that is a challenge because you need to maybe find, okay, you do a basic LLM, but then fine tuning you do, and then you predict discourse structures versus like individual words. So your mask language model first, you predict words, tokens, and then you predict discourse structures. I can imagine architecture, but I don't have the full intuition how it would work how to embed this whole thing in LLM.
As a suggestion, you've got a status bar, just click the blue OK and cover the title bar.
Okay, so one notion in education. So now we are starting to see what are phenomenology, what have been explored, what are the models of discourse. Collaborative discourse represent efforts to harness interpersonal communication and in the subjective meaning making of decision makers and learners. So this is representation for like different people, how they can share. Different people have different knowledge, different understanding, how they can share common discourse. So how different people when learning communicate with each other and how they deal with their background knowledge is different. That was formalized in some studies on what is called collaborative discourse. That is semantic network also sees in discourse. So this is a historical historical observation by philosophical studies, 60s, 70s. They were discussing some like meetings about national socialism, Austrian independence, and they try to represent it as a structure back before linguistic graph. It's historically, so back then they mixed semantic representation and discourse. What we now know is semantic representation and discourse representation. So this slide has a historic meaning that sometimes the difference, sometimes complicated semantic relationship can be viewed as a discourse also. And historically, it wasn't clearly separated. Now, with all these computational tools, we have a better picture. Okay, why discourse analysis needed to supplement LLM? We show an example of question where reasoning is required to answer. For example, we have a question, why does the patient urinate too frequently? So this is a concealed question. We don't know the answer. Probably the patient is not very straightforward. We need to infer. We need to like figure that out implicitly. I'm telling you a million times, I need to go to bathroom frequently because I just drank 1 liter bottle of water. So person is upset. How, if you just ask ChatGPT, how can you express that you're upset? But using discourse analysis, this is a background knowledge. So what the reason medical condition associated with frequent urination? And there are many, but some anxiety or stress. But this has been expressed not in semantics, but in discourse feature, say, million times. Because from million times, you need to figure out that this means a patient is in distress, which large language model cannot do. I mean, it can do if you specifically ask, like, if I'm telling you do something a million times, am I in distress or not? Language model will say, yes, you are in distress. But in this case, you have to infer because it could be million grams or like 1 liter. So how do you know that million refers to being distressed and 1 liter just quantity of water, which is neutral? So this is a semantic representation, which is called abstract meaning representation. We have entities, we have predicates, argument. This is the argument structure. So this is one way to represent. This is represented as a graph. It's a multiple sentence, urinate interrogative form, frequent, and have the person has the role playing the role of patient. So this is high-level semantic representation. But again, this is not enough. In high-level semantic representation, we have that already embedded into large language model. But this inference that if person is saying million times, it refers that this person is in distress. That is something which is happening outside. It's happening outside, and we need specific means to deal with that. So if this query is submitted to ChatGPT, ChatGPT just enumerates frequent urination called by various, enumerates all factors, but it should have said that this is the most likely factor, judging on a person being in distress. Okay, so ChatGPT will give you a very general answer, which could be significantly reduced if you analyze discourse. Okay, now like classical modern search engineering, we have overall text. We have question which iceberg is moving towards South Atlantic. We have some text about icebergs. We build a discourse tree. We understand the relationship between these paragraphs. And then discourse tree tells which content submit to LLM. So this is like, again, how discourse improves RAG. So in RAG, we have something already embedded in LLM, and then we have documents. These documents are in vector database. We find some part close to the question, but this is not good enough because once we have discourse analysis, we know better, more accurately and systematically which part should be submitted to LLM to extract or formulate answer. Okay. So default approach retrieves smaller chunks for better search quality. Each sentence embedded separately. Then if you have, because we assume that like question maybe 3 to 5 to 10 keywords and sentence on average 10, 15 keywords. So then we just compute similarity in vector space using vector database between question and answer. But this is not good enough because sometimes answer can be distributed through questions, which means that only part of answer will be matched with sentence, and that will decrease search accuracy. So I'm saying vector database is kind of step back in respect to classical search engineering, which like pre-deep learning, before LLM. Okay, so this is extended, like more specific architecture. We have a discourse tree. Now we have a matching, not just sentence in answer with questions, with question, as vector databases do. But now we also matching discourse representation. So at indexing now, our vector store, not just summary, not just sentence, but also index for discourse representation. So if we match discourse representation of query with discourse representation of candidate answer first, and then reduce. So this way, we not randomly split document into parts and just match by part, but do it in a more systematic way. Okay, so this is motivation. So, okay, we can kind of got used to, so with LLM, it's a mystery, it's like adventure, it's an art, but there's still some systematic approaches you can do on top of LLM to improve search relevance. Again, treating document not as a random sequence of sentences which fed into a vector store and then matched, but systematic, structured sequence. So now we know where to go.
Are you creating a discourse tree of the input?
So for question, I also need, because I need to know which part to answer. And so the question is, why we need to have discourse representation of question also. So for answer is obvious, because we need to know the structure of document. For the so if it's a
repeat this for a moment. We noticed there were some problems with the screen going to snow a couple of times.
yes,
I asked for some help. We're just going to temporarily unplug from one place. Okay, go to a more direct connection.
okay,
It may help the video.
okay. Okay, so if the question is very short, like 3 words, there's nothing to get lost. But if question has 10 words, they may be more important and less important. We're going to look at examples. So then this discourse representation is important. And we will, especially if we have a dialog and we have question answer, consecutive question, which takes into account previous answer, then definitely we need discourse representation. So in general answer, only if we have one very short really don't, otherwise we do.
And then are you using a
squeeze the
representation
source
of work to do similarity matching against a representation of discourse? Like to
Okay,
add-
so for semantics, you do similarity. For discourse, you do coordination because not necessarily similar discourse trees are best answer. Okay, so in terms of question answer semantic, the closer they are to each other, the better. For discourse, it's not similarities implemented. And I show example for looks better. It's a complementarity. I will show examples. So, for example, if my answer, for example, sarcastic, then I expect contrast, I expect contradiction in the answer. So it's not, sarcasm is not like similar to contradiction, but there's a certain coordination between how question is organized logically and how answer is organized logically. And again, this is not as simple as similarity. Okay, yes, the question.
I have a really basic question. So let's say organization works two groups.
Okay.
What is the process to store all this things into the map? So that you have the index or this.
Okay, you do discourse parsing. Okay, the question is, what do you, in terms of what is in engineering, what do you need to do? You do discourse parsing, which is available. You do discourse parsing, and you encode discourse trees as a sequence of paths, and then here, and then and this is happening offline at indexing time. At search time, you quickly build discourse tree for the query because it's short, usually short, and then you apply this coordination rule. You know, based on, like, for example, if the question is sarcastic, you only look for paragraphs which have contradictions. Because for sarcastic question, it can be just yes, 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 yes. It has to be something. If you have sarcastic, and I will have examples. If you have sarcastic question, then it should be yes, but no. There should be some contradiction, some not smooth logical flow. Okay? Yes.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you please use your mouse pointer, pointing things on the screen so that people don't see it. When you point at things.
Instead of using
on
your
the screen,
finger, use your mouse.
No versus okay.
So that people don't. see it.
Okay. Yes.
Distinction of this search mechanism
Mhm.
from the regular search mechanism, say in Google or other places.
Mhm.
Then if you're things and
Okay, so what's the difference between this search and like typical today modern Google search? So first, let's talk about like classical index search, not generative AI search. What I'm suggesting is additional criteria for search. So you still match keywords, you still do TF-IDs, you still run, for example, like space query, you know who you are, you have personalization, they all stay the same. But for some queries with non-trivial logic, for those queries, discourse take place, or for multi-hop questions. For example, you ask, like, what is like, I don't know, hiking preference of Bill Gates? You have one document about biography of Bill Gates and totally some other, totally different chapter, something where he hiked. And maybe where he hiked, his name is not mentioned. So system needs to combine different parts of documents to form an answer. So for that, you need to have a discourse representation of documents. So you can navigate, and in one answer, you combine different pieces.
So there's a semantic search.
This is semantic search, but not just, so semantic search in the sense you have an entity Bill Gates and you have attribute like travel preference. That part is semantic, but the part that you have to go to different parts of documents to find this information, this is now discourse part, because semantic just a meaning of word, but semantic doesn't know how this meaning is organized through sentence, through paragraph, through section of the document, or through multiple documents. So once we have organization of text, it's discourse. Meaning of each entity, it is semantic.
So where I'm getting lost is we are referring to semantics of two different words.
Okay.
So you're going to the level of semantics of clusters. Is it true?
You mean,
Like one cluster, what it means in this cluster is semantics,
okay.
wise versus the other one and how they relate.
Cluster is the parts of documents. What are clusters?
Cluster is like a sentence, multiple words.
Okay, so the meaning of word is semantic, location, how these words are distributed along the document, that is discourse. And now basically repeating syntactic, semantic, and what I'm showing here, the discourse is domain independent. Although parsers are unreliable, but hopefully they will improve and there are higher level of abstraction and associated with meta level reasoning. And by the way, meta level reasoning is also part, there's a whole line of research, meta prompts. Like we have LLM, now we develop prompts. How can we learn prompts automatically? And this is also another application of meta level reasoning, just not related to this talk. Yes.
When they unplugged the monitor to change,
Okay.
I think it messed up the Zoom. And so it's several slides back. There was a suggestion if you close out of Zoom and get back into it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then share, then it should go back to live.
Okay.
Thank you for your speech. Dave.
Okay. But I think I have Zoom active, right?
Yeah, but what Bill is displaying it live
Okay.
and it's many slides back. And as
Okay.
you're paging down, it hasn't
Oh.
progressed.
Okay. Stop share. But also I need to log into Zoom again.
Yes,
Okay.
so just completely get out of Zoom. So that's a Zoom webinar. So exit that too.
Mhm. It's shared. Now my
Don't say. Bill?
Yeah.
Are
No,
you
resolution
watching?
is-
Yes. And
Something broke with resolution, but okay. It's different resolution now.
Is there something in your back settings that set the resolution? Are you seeing the same resolution on your screen?
Yeah, something happened. I think it's too much using Zoom and screen sharing at the same time.
You disconnect the external line of the cable and then make it work with it more easily.
Oh, but now it's okay.
here.
Oh, but now we don't have Zoom anymore. We don't have Zoom anymore.
Well, you go to Zoom and turn off sharing back on.
I think basically current Mac operating system does not support this whole thing. You either do Zoom or you do the screen.
It's worked for others.
Okay.
And I mean, you've been here before and presented and it worked.
But maybe it's not as reliable now.
Okay, so sharing desktop one. Okay, so that's all. I just had to click share.
But why did it stop sharing if I unplugged video?
I don't want to have a long conversation.
Okay.
Oh, not this again.
It's
That's okay.
something that it does.
Oh. Okay, that's me.
What says use slideshow, can you go there?
I'm trying. Where is use slideshow?
Top line.
Mute, stop video, participants, chat.
Slideshow, right above the slide.
Okay, just a minute. I'm trying to get rid of this slide. Come on up and help. Escape. Okay.
What's going on here? Let's see why. It's funny, I can see it on the Zoom, but not here. Anyway,
It's something. You want screen sharing.
could be. So how about, there it is. No, apparently not.
So on the top right, under more, you can hide all that stuff. So scroll down and hide Video panel, I for the media controls. Click.
Well, there we go.
Okay. So now there's a new slide for you can see.
And
Top one.
there we go. Okay.
So it's gonna make.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now more specifically, what is the discourse tree?
If you have a mouse that you can move.
Okay, let's ignore some people. So rhetoric structure theory simulates simulate text representation by means of a relation that holds between two parts of text. So we talked about discourse in a like general, intuitive manner so far. Now let's be more computational. So rhetorical structure theory, it was a theory which tried to start from like humanitarian, imprecise discourse and formalize it, make it computational. So what rhetorical structure theory explains is that text is coherent. It's not not that sentences are organized by grammar. Sentences cannot be random. Sequence of words follow the grammar, but grammar is not correlated with logic. When we express our thoughts, we have to first introduce one object, then introduce another object, and then introduce a relation between them, but not other way around. So there is such thing as grammar to which works within one sentence, but also logic organization follows its own laws, and those are covered with rhetorical structure theory. And the relations are coordinate and subordinate. So we have a logical sequence, and then there's always one part is more important, one part is less important. And just using this structure, we organize trees. There's a curious story about Tyrannus. We will explain developing theory of organization at the same time, starting from 2015. This whole story around Tyrannus started to develop. And it started first, people were not sure if it's really fraud happening or just their competitors complaining and trying to basically use unfair means to compete with them. So we use discourse analysis of what was written about Tyrannus and how Tyrannus explain what they do. And as they become more and more complicated and more controversial, we improved our discourse means for argumentation analysis. So one of application of discourse theory is analyze arguments and identify truth or false.
Difficult sentence to parse, such an uninformed sentence.
So this is sentence how Tyrannus replied to some accusations. And we try to represent this sentence and then classify discourse trees as discourse trees for like truth and discourse trees for lies and misrepresentation. Again, you cannot do it at syntactic level, like apple is red, so what? It may be true, maybe false, nobody knows. But once we have overall logic, like I'm hiding from you this apple because I don't want you to see what the color of this apple is, but I'm telling you that it is red. So once, see, it's a complicated logic. Once I tell you something like that, then it's not syntax and semantic anymore. This is discourse analysis. Based on my type of representation, you make decision if I'm lying or not.
Possible that in transformer architecture, different heads could be, or could actually be learning these discourse relationships?
Okay, so first of all, modern discourse parsers. So the question is, can a language model learn some discourse features? So discourse parsers operate on discourse cues, like something, however, on commas, but however. So that part can be acquired, can be captured by a large language model. Large language model don't have need to like deal with this whole structure. Like make it meaningful, explainable, the whole discourse organization of it.
So even with cross attention and heads, you know, I think those could sort of be captured.
Okay, you
through
can
this, or-
you can learn, you can classify, for example, well, obviously you can classify text with different discourse, but you cannot output the structure. So because different discourse organizations, they may have the same words, but these words are going to be in different sequence.
Yeah.
So that part, level capture, but level not output the structural representation because there's no mechanism.
Yeah, I was thinking, I'm wondering if internally they might.
Internally, it can have it, but how can we feel it?
There's connection is. So
It's just vibes all the way down.
So also,
Relationships here, so that's what I'm saying.
so what we have a room with that like main thing, like one thing explain other thing. This explanation in turn split into two parts. This attribution saying like I explain this by attributing this to that knowledge. Like somebody said me, attribution means somebody said me that, or like this is how I got this knowledge, which I'm using to explain something. Background means for some piece of knowledge, I provide background information. And in addition to this logical organization, we add communicative action. This is a totally different line of research called speech X theory, which explores how people exchange like utterances, and this is useful for dialect. And in this case, we formalize both of them, we combine together. So now rhetorical relations are arcs, and labels for arcs are a communicative action like struggle and develop. So we can have the same discourse trees, but communicative actions can be different. And then this overall logic will be different. Yes.
is there open source software that'll do the discourse parsing into trees like this?
Okay, so the easy answer is yes, but actually then you need to debug, not off the shelf, unfortunately. It used to be, okay, there is for Java, but for Python, although like all linguistics now is done in Python, so you have to get something and you have to do a lot of work on top of it. So I try to do it, but so right now for Python, it's very hard to get reliable discourse parsing. I mean, technology is there, just that nobody needs it. I mean, I think it is necessary for search, but the way of linguistic community today, it used to be when everything was in Java, there are Java parsers for discourse structures. There are papers and research and evaluations for discourse parsers in Python based on deep learning, just they're not usable. They're not designed like software quality. They're good for evaluation, for just giving good numbers. I mean, that can be viewed as kind of linguistic science is kind of deteriorating in the sense that good enough for linguistic publications, but not good enough for us engineers to take and use.
Do you see Lisp or Prolog coming back to help?
Prolog, I think now the parts that are still going to be, I mean, they are much better based on deep learning, because at about, I think, 2016, 2018, there are a lot of studies, and then deep learning based discourse parsers are performing much better. Just that they never engineered well enough so we can integrate into something else. They can work standalone and do evaluation, but not good enough to be integrated. So I'm still using Java. So the whole system in Python, but for discourse parsing, I'm still using Java.
All right.
It's yes.
Just, I'm not sure this is entirely relevant, but I have talked to an Amazon engineer who says that they do all of their production work in Java. They design in Python and then port to Java for production. And they are developing libraries, I believe they said under the MIT license. There may be some stuff out there that's developed.
Okay, so just if you go to GitHub and search for discourse parsers, you find a few. And the one I'm using is not even on GitHub. It's University of Arizona. They did it some time ago, I think 2015. And since 2015, they're not improving it. So again, there are better models based on deep learning, but how you, it's very hard for them to integrate. They don't output into discourse tree, so we can use, but they output basically evaluation results. They don't, so they're not usable. They only good to show that their performance is good, but not usable in terms of take discourse tree and do something with it. Like not good for downstream tasks.
Good for conference paper, not for software problem.
Yeah, only for good for conference paper, yeah. Okay, now even really simpler. Let's have a text. We have a text. This camera shoots well in low light, so I made a few good shots on a boat at night. So okay, just classical search engineering. Which part would you are you going to like? This is the text, and now you're preparing for search. Which part of this text would you index? Would you put in your index? Sure, because this is very specific. Nobody cares what I did. This information is camera shoots well in low light, and nobody cares what I did with this camera exactly. So how it works? We have rhetoric, the discourse tree. We have relation of explanation. This is called nucleus and satellite. And the simple rule is do not index satellites because satellites are very specific information and it's only relevant when we have context with nucleus. So for example, once we index it, this is a good answer for and top part. Which camera shoots well in low light? How do you shoot in low light cameras, but not for good shots at boat? Because that's not relevant. Although I mentioned both.
Yes. This kind of depends on the intent of the person asking the question. If it's a detective looking to go on and see whether or not this guy committed a murder, and you go on and have basically an explanation, an alibi sitting in the second part, that's very important.
Oh, good point. But this text is designed, is it from reviews? This text is designed to recommend camera. Possibly you can infer what you can infer from this text. So for inference, you need the whole thing. But for like opinionated recommendation problem.
You're recommending suspects for a murder.
Okay.
It turns out this second part is important.
But when you index for intent, like you index for intent of like shopping and recommendation. If you index text for forensics or
recommendation, I'm interested in finding out who killed someone. So
if your client is a police agency.
But then it's a very different indexing logic.
Right. But that's what he's bringing up.
Okay.
There's a different context.
Yeah, okay, good note, because I was showing you that good notice. Okay, so I assumed we index this text building like product recommendation system. Then the nucleus is what the main fact, and everything opinionated is only valid on top of it in addition, and not valid on its own. But for forensic purposes, it's different but it's hard to imagine indexing any text for forensic. We don't know in advance what could be useful.
that's the point. We don't know in advance what's going to be used.
But if you index everything, you get you have a problem with precision. You have a problem with precision.
I also just trying to follow along your line of questioning is you're also introducing the touch of deception, going back to speech acts theory. So far, this may be a poor review, it might be a good review, it might be well-informed or poorly informed, but it's still a review that's attempting to convey a true opinion of the reviewer, even if they were broad, as opposed to something intentionally deceptive, like a mystery novel or something where there's some confession. So I want to just be clear that, the forensics use case is really a little bit farther off than I think.
No, it depends. What's happening here is you're recording the state of the world. The state of the world goes on and includes its object, which is a camera. But it also goes on and includes the guy who's present, the point that this thing goes on and happens, the description of the scene.
So if you, perhaps for the police investigation, you want to do more about named enemy recognition, where there's proper nouns, what time, were they, at what place.
And this
For
relates,
the police investigation, that's much more relevant.
and this relates back to the point I asked at the very beginning. Is there only one discourse tree associated with the body of the text? Because if there's just one, it seems that basically cameras that shoot well and low light, great. On the other hand, if it's a detective and he goes on and wants to go on and clear out alibis for suspects in the case, then in fact that would go on and be a different parse on top of the discourse. You could still use discourse for it.
There might be different objectives of what you're trying to get out.
That's right. So again, the fact that you go, and this is one thing I found out 40 years ago, it turns out the raw text is very important. You go on and have some kind of a interpretation you put on top of it and keep the interpretation and don't keep the raw text. I got screwed every time. Okay, you need to go on and potentially parse this thing with a couple of different intentions.
Even more, if you move a little bit more, so you figure out who it's in that.
I think that's a very interesting discussion. Basically, like reevaluating the foundation of discourse theory, which is saying there's only one best discourse tree.
No.
But even for police, but still, this sentence only makes sense in this context. But this part makes sense on its own, even for police.
Not if I'm looking for alibis. I don't give a shit if I use the camera or not. I took
But if it's
good shots
so-
on the boat at night.
So,
Turns out it doesn't matter much what I was doing there. It was my location and the device I was on. This other stuff is incidental, at least in a murder investigation.
So I guess perhaps the audience question is,
okay.
what configurations exist? So you could reconfigure the discourse parse tree to focus on different things.
Yeah,
It's like you go to a Google
Never
database,
heard, that's a totally
you can
new
add
idea.
a new transaction.
Okay,
Queries
totally
on it.
new idea. I never heard about it. Very interesting.
Okay.
I mean, I can still argue that these are not symmetric, but the idea that for different okay, so for medicine, for example, this is what I'm doing for medicine. For medicine, I'm adding specific labels, but I'm not saying that like for finding different diseases, we need different discourse representation. That would be too much. But it's an interesting point.
Yes, back to the slideshow. I'm just glad I'm not talking about LLMs again tonight. It's not whether shoot means gunshot or Photoshop.
Okay, so this is a like tax law example. How should I plan to pay for tax resulting from converting to Roth IRA? More complicated. And again, we have nuclear satellite. More important is underscored. Less important. So less important can only be indexed in addition to more important, but more important is can be indexed on its own. So these parts are not symmetric. And when you index text, you should take this into account. And that is applicable to old-fashioned like inverse index search and also applicable to modern vector database. Yes.
What kind of text I can put in discourse parsing?
Any text, any text. Just, I mean, you cannot put tables, but any human text you can.
Yes, same like I'm just talking with the example, like if I go to parse, it's a Reddit thread or Twitter thread. Without any little context. Across these conversations.
So I worked with like Twitter and short. I have. So the question was, can discourse parsing and discourse models be applicable to like reduce like smaller text, smaller different genre like Twitter? The answer is yes, but it's in a reduced form. In Twitter, a lot of like skips. So you have to first recover the grammar. You have to add background information, and then discourse parsing would make more sense. And if you just apply parser formally, you're going to be very noisy results. So you have to do something. You have to provide background, like fill the gaps. You have to convert it into like more like all information which should be there. You should add. Then discourse parsing would make more sense. But if you apply discourse parsing as it is to like Twitter text, they're short, and most times they're going to be just either trivial or incorrect structures. Just enumerate the examples. Rhetorically, now we talk about sarcasm. If I'm asking like what something does, what something really does. When you ask what something does, it's just a definitional question. And really converts discourse. So syntactic and semantic are the same. Really change the discourse representation. Really means I would think this entity does one thing, but actually does a very different thing. And for that, that's another visualization of discourse tree. For definitional answer, you don't need contrast in discourse in answer, but for like sarcastic or for answer expecting some contradiction, I would expect one thing, but it turned out to be different. You need contrast in answer. In the answer.
Well, seems to me I need it for the first question, because now the thing comes up. the foundation, really what it sounds like here is Clifton's foundation has two goals. The surface, one, which is its front,
Okay.
and the second, which is the true one. You don't need two questions to ask. You can simply say, ostensibly, the spending goes directly to program improves lives, but it's also used to go on and buy influence. You can have
Right,
one
I mean,
foundation
how
with
can you
two
get it?
things.
In ChatGPT or in Google, you will not get. Like for example, if you go to Google or ChatGPT and you ask this exact question, it will not understand really. It will ignore it. So you do need discourse analysis.
There's such thing as like logical notation or sarcasm.
Oh, that's so really it is a like
Hell
is
no.
a logical notation for sarcasm.
Logical sense, right? In our
So in natural language, you just say really. You can have like notation, special notation for sarcasm, but their language means also.
10 years ago, I suggested a sarcasm tag, which you go on with a sentence, and people understand.
Like you have it in like charts, right? When everything is very short, abbreviated. But again, the question is simple, but for one answer you need. So this is definitional answer. Maybe I should say, okay, now look at these trees and tell me which is definitional or which is sarcastic. Without going into details. So sarcastic should have context, right? Because if there's no context, there's no sarcasm.
Surprise.
Some surprise, yeah.
And the other question.
Or joke, for example. Joke should also have context. And definitional is just elaboration, just more detail. Okay. Now it's more complicated. We have a longer text, real patient complaint, and now discourse 3 visualize. So basically, the indentation is like level of leave. These are the same. Manner means contrast. Manner means like how you achieve this. So this is what you achieve, and then relation between what you achieve and how you achieve this. Contrast, we can see the examples. And now we have Baikala stage medical encounter. Means this is a discourse model. When you come to doctor, like all the hospital admission things, there are defined steps. And from discourse 3 now you can include these steps. The dialect structure, it's a very different. It can be one set of steps, but dialect structure very different. It depends on like training of the doctor and culture. Social, online communication, again, in medical, it feels very different. Pain discourse. Communicative actions we already considered. So now this is the whole tree going to look by parts, but this is the whole tree, and the relations are contrast we discussed. Background means background information. This is what I did, and what knowledge complements and makes a sense of it.
Maybe have multiple tags on the same thing.
Yes, something can be a communication problem, and maybe you can communicative action, and you can express pain in communicative action. So they could
Doctor's a
be.
pain in my ass. Okay, it turns out there you've got a social and you've got.
Oh, that's a good example. Pain in my ass. So it's a reference to pain, and you need specific additional examples to infer to train that pain in my ass is
You
not
could have
related
two
to pain.
tags, you could have two tags on the same piece of text.
Yes.
Okay.
Is the context to hip replacement or hemorrhoids? Because one of the pain in the ass is not sarcastic.
Oh, that's a good.
Yeah, if the doctor's a vet and the ass is.
Prostate.
I'm curious if ChatGPT can differentiate. In some cases, it should. Okay, this is considered by just by portions. Then pain discourse, magical encounter. So again, what I'm showing, this is now domain dependent. What you mentioned for police, for example, if I have crime scene description, I can I would have set of standard rhetorical relations, but on top of that, I would have different text, but kind of text specific to what police might be interested in. So this is just a different domain.
Each application.
Yeah, just in police. Actually, I have some work in like criminal informatics some time ago, but now this is so going to be similar discourse 3. Again, basic relations you need, and additional specific to investigation. For criminal informatics, what I defined, so you have discourse tree, since you asked, but then, for example, you have template car plate number recognition. So you put on top of it, you have financial transactions. So you have discourse tree with additional labels for phone calls, who calls each other, with the communicative actions. You have a car plate recognition, like some people communicate and then it turns out that their car were next to each other or they drove one after another in the financial transactions. So this is what important for investigation. And I called it like extended discourse tree. So for medical purposes, extended with these tags, but for criminal informatics for investigation, they have different tags and different structures on top of it. How are we doing on time? So now I'm going to talk about like competitive approaches. There are some work using discourse analysis for.
It's like 8:25, so usually we wrap up 8:30-ish. We could go.
Okay, I'll quickly run through examples. So there are some approaches that you use prompts to drill down. You ask ChatGPT or other LLM to navigate and get navigation through prompts. Or that's one approach. Another approach is you encode discourse tree as additional tokens, specific tokens, and then you digest it, you train, do it as a fine-tuning, and in addition to LLM trained on words, you fine-tune on discourse level data. And now I'm quickly show. So you basically using these prompts to ChatGPT also helps you to find this position of the document, and once you based on the summary. So instead of first you split documents into parts, then you summarize each part. It's intense, but in the cases you have to deal with long documents, and then once you have summary, you search through summary. Once you find the proper section, then you go inside this section, and then it comes to standard LLM RAG. And then for that, you take into account different section structure, like numeration and formatting of section titles. And this approach also, discourse can be used like for attention matrix, the default approach, but sliding window, related sliding window, global plus sliding, you can, but also you can use discourse for that. You can say that attention can be words which far apart from each other if they connected via discourse, for example, and that can give you different mask. There are some works along these lines. Again, prompt-based architecture, you ask ChatGPT to navigate through different sections. Instead of doing discourse analysis and doing this outside of LLM, you ask LLM to summarize and to form section structure for you using prompts. And then last approach, you do embedding for discourse trees. You build discourse tree whatever way. Easiest way in this paper, you just do consider document and sentence structure, not real discourse tree, just like general discourse information, not discourse tree how we defined it, and then you embed it as a graph. That's alternative approach. And all of these approaches are targeting searching long documents. So again, this is the way convenient representation of discourse tree, convenient for embedding. So this I used very briefly through evaluation. I used different competitive data sets for question answering long documents, compare different systems. Like this is our approach is a competitive system, including ChatGPT, and the specific database developed for. And sometimes we have better, in some settings we have better results, in some cases not so good. So there's no, so again, embedding discourse trees and relying on them, it's a systematic, it's a the advantage is it's a systematic approach. Disadvantage that sometimes it's not always best. Sometimes it does better. Sometimes in terms of overall evaluation, sometimes it doesn't work too well. And finally, just spend a couple of minutes. This is a study before LLMs. How can you form dialogues based on initial utterance? An idea here, I'll come back to this idea here is that it is known that medical doctor usually interrupts patient on average after 11 seconds. So I'm patient, I come to doctor, I'm starting explaining my problem, and by the second 11, I'm interrupted. So for the doctor, it's enough. 11 seconds of my complaint is enough to understand what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I kind of,
It's enough before he interrupts you,
yes.
not necessarily that you understand.
Okay, so that's a statistical data. That's statistical data based on recordings or conversational recordings. So I kind of exaggerate this idea and say that how you can build dialogue from the start. And again, this is pre-LLM work, the specific algorithm, how you build discourse tree for question, for answer. And the idea here, you have initial dialogue, you build discourse tree of it, but then when you find candidate answers, you need to find multiple answers, which totally combination of them addresses and maps in original discourse tree. Again, this is discourse tree for the first question of the dialogue, which I showed here. And we have candidate answers. So first thing is relevance, like keywords or LLM or the database, but also what is important that a combination of discourse trees of answers should map into original discourse tree of initial query. So this is an observation. Probably that's how doctors can figure out based not on just, because doctors kind of have some expectations of patient condition. That's how doctors don't need to hear the whole story.
That's bad. I mean, my own personal situation, I was diagnosed with deep vein thrombosis. The guy cut me off, says you're going to go on and put somebody going to do the blood clot off. In fact, I had cancer. The cancer wound up putting on and causing a blood clot, which wound up treating with warfarin and not by removing the tumor. So if you go on and don't do a thorough examination of the patient inside the system, have them go on and ask more questions past the 11-second mark, you'll kill them.
I'm totally not defending. I'm just saying that
But
kind of
there's a
boring the logic.
difference between a response and an answer.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'm saying that in
Okay.
particular, you're conflating those two. And as a
Okay.
result, it winds up not being a proper decomposition of the dialogue that you're talking, the discourse.
Okay.
If truth value is important, if it's not important, then it doesn't matter. But if you're going to go on and have an explanation for stuff,
Okay.
often it goes on and requires asking more questions, which is not sure.
And this part is inventing new questions. So confirm solution, propose, and so this is about something I figured out, but then I need to invent new questions, automatically form new questions and confirm them. So provide clarification means as a system, so not everything is clear. I generate questions and then the user has to answer this, user has to respond and provide clarification. Okay, so we are close. We have a conclusion. To conclude, discourse system answer queries against long medical documents, integrated patient structure of patient and review, metaphoric language, patient-doctor communication discourse, modalities, formalization in the form of discourse tree. And another important thing, if we can use discourse, it can compensate some lack of common sense and medical knowledge. And this I mean, for large language model, we know they're lacking some common sense and some reasoning abilities. And again, this is a neuro-symbolic approach. Okay, questions?
What, I don't understand. Ascending to the discourse level, what does that?
Okay, ascending means once you abstract away, you don't have all knowledge, but from discourse, you can kind of infer. So what you're missing in terms of common sense knowledge. You don't have all knowledge, but using discourse, you can skip and still continue with reasonable dialogue or reasonable conclusion. So it's a form of substitute for some knowledge. Okay, like children, when they talk, if they don't know anything, they can easily skip and continue conversation, continue their action, or continue like selection of reaction. And I'm trying with linguistic systems saying that sometimes knowledge is absent, but you can compensate by maintaining discourse.
Is
Okay,
the word ascending referring to ascending up the hierarchy of the tree?
No, it means like a level of abstraction.
Okay.
Level of abstraction. Well, yeah, I should have done it clear, more clear.
Well, I confuse it, so that's why I asked all the questions.
I mean, okay, it's ambiguous. I should have said like abstract level, not tree navigation. Okay.
Go back to GPT-3.
Okay.
You type stuff in there and it would basically complete, but it wouldn't respond in a conversational way. And it would get off topic really easy. And then in ChatGPT, they got it to take on a question answer format and stay on topic. And I guess there's also like the possibility of like asking for more information. Are those changes at the discourse level? Would you consider those transitions to be?
Okay, so basically transition from like plain text to dialogue.
Yeah.
So dialogue has its own. The question is how to transition from plain text to dialogue. Then this dialogue is a special dialogue structure, special discourse structure relative to plain text. Because in addition, like whatever information you express in dialogue, you also have turn like changing, which is additional. Think of it additional discourse relations.
Right. So that is a way that they have adapted elements at the discourse level into the.
Yeah, so they implicitly learn.
Right.
And what
Yeah,
I'm saying,
okay.
I worked for some time, I worked on the tool. So before LLMs, you need to train chatbots. So documents are available for everything, like financial documents, medical documents, no never limit of documents. However, dialogues, domain-specific dialogues, they never always limited. No, they will.
Do you ask ChatGPT to go on and create a syntactic representation of the sentence?
Syntactic, yes, discourse-level. I think syntactic kind of.
And the reason it's able to go on and parse stuff and it has enough knowledge about syntax documents that it can create a syntax tree for you for a sentence.
I think syntactic and semantic, they can some form.
So if it can do that, what prevents it from being able to go on and create a discourse tree from a sentence? You can ask it the same question.
I think I tried.
You would have to be trained. You would probably have to have some,
Question.
It'd have to be,
you would probably have to have some kind of.
So the question, can LLM do discourse parsing? The short answer is no. Short answer is no. I tried, they don't. Just in case. And even knowledge about discourse is very limited. If you ask ChatGPT about syntax and semantic, it will tell you a lot. About discourse tree, it will hallucinate. Just not enough documents.
so it's not very many vectors there.
Yeah, not enough. And not enough interest. Also. Yes.
So trying to answer, say, question answering systems.
Mhm.
So I was wondering, like, this is kind of similar, like the relationships, elaboration, explanation is kind of capturing the relationship across these individual components like the cycle and the nucleus.
Yes.
So I wanted to hear about your thoughts on how these two are kind of generalization of each other, like
Okay.
knowledge graph.
So knowledge graph and discourse tree. What's the difference between knowledge graph and discourse tree? The answer is knowledge graph, it's ontology, it's very domain specific. And discourse representation is totally domain independent. So discourse representation doesn't have anything to do with specific knowledge. It's just abstract way of organizing thoughts. And thoughts can be about anything. So in this case, they complementary. Knowledge graphs help in terms of knowledge. You know, like in medical domain, you know what are the illnesses, what are the genes. And discourse will tell you how knowledge about genes or whatever, any knowledge organized in paragraphs and sections and in documents. Like what is discourse structure of electronic health record? What is discourse structure of communication dialogue, of notes? of a treatment, like treatment plans. So it's they complement, they're very different, but they will complement each other. Adding knowledge graph will improve relevance. And adding discourse representation will also improve relevance, but from different sides.
Starting with back to use cases that. I mean, before this slide, it seems like it's mostly like something like RAG for LLMs. But here we're talking about the discourse system. So are you using additional methodologies?
So again, the discourse is something what we have LLM, we have RAG, and then we have additional constraints on search. So RAG, instead of searching everything, it's only search according to discourse structure. Think of it as additional considerations on top of, like, instead of again RAG, not searching your question against all documents, all sentences in documents. It's search selected specifically organized sentences.
I guess a general question regarding LLMs, like, so I could just fit all the documents into context window. Will that give me?
Okay, theoretically, you can just merge everything. But still, if you have a long document and just do one like lookup element, so okay, you agree the whole document is an answer, but it's not very useful.
So that's what I'm saying, like, does the noise of the entire, filling out the entire conflict window make the
You still have to split, but discourse analysis tells you how to split. Because now you can have, you can have, but today, like people use the examples from lynching, they run, they have problems in relevance, and then they think in terms, okay, maybe too short, maybe too long. They can control the length of how you split the text. But I'm saying that's not really intuitive.
Get a little closer to the mic.
That is not really intuitive, because you need to understand the structure. So that, like, the beauty of LLM that it's trained from language, so it's understand meaning of language, but it doesn't understand language meaning of, like, overall, doesn't capture structure. So if you can do better job than just control the length of split, you win.
There's other ways to go on and extend LLMs besides RAG, okay? And that go on and preserve, I would assume, semantic structure better. Have you looked at doing that?
Okay, you can preserve semantic structure,
Yeah,
but
you-
discourse is also important. So you can, but that's like complementary. It's useful in
standard
discourse.
conference that the 2.5 day symposium I attended was all about common sense reasoning, and they were using a lot of knowledge graphs and domain specific knowledge. And so it wasn't just RAG against text, but it's also
So these
using knowledge graph structures.
these criticisms he's bringing up that talk about split, it all, in my mind, it relates back to the fact that you have this context continuation problem when you end up using RAGs for extension. Suppose you don't do that. Suppose what you do is use LoRa, or you go on, you train it from scratch or stuff like that. My question is do these arguments about using context would still apply? Does that make sense?
Well, for discourse analysis is about like that one document or a conversation. And so it's larger than sentence level. So it's more like in a paragraph level. But it wouldn't necessarily be a book level.
So his points about splitting context, it's that would occur whether you wound up using RAG or not. Is that your statement?
Yes. Yes. Because RAG is going against a much larger purpose. So discourse is much for a much shorter conversation.
Thank you.
So, but the discourse tree, like, the actual context actually provided, are you aggregating like the different parts of the discourse tree and then?
You include pauses, like you have like from the top, you encode relation, then what is called text itself called elementary discourse unit. One discourse unit relation, another discourse unit. So like how you encode a tree for matching, you encode all passes, and then you match passes. Like for passes in this discourse tree from question to little answers, or you want to organize like similar coordinate, you want to organize like similar structure, logical structure of paragraph, similar paragraphs. Then you match totality of, if you do a score, totality of passes of this question. Or you can do also like maximum common substitute. Can also work. Some algorithms for substituting.
I think that question out of this question,
Okay,
using this discourse and like parsing.
yes,
And taking the right context.
yes.
Are we claiming that we are improving the compression of like the representation, like we are having putting it in a compressed form? Like say we have like, it's a hypothetical, like let's say we have a context window and then you provide the entire like discourse, like not say RAG based selection, but we could do like exhaustive information provided. And
Okay.
in other case, we could compress this like context window by doing more like intelligence, discourse based behavior. So
Okay,
are we claiming
okay.
that the
Yeah,
relevance
it can be viewed.
So Morris, can you summarize it?
Okay, so the
We have
question
more
is,
people online than in the room.
so the question is, when you encode, when you add the discourse information, can it be viewed as compression of overall thing? So initial structure is linear. So the difference, so like if you don't have discourse analysis, it's a sequence of sentence, sequence of words, sequence of sentences, sequence of paragraphs. But in addition to linear, the logical organization gives you additional structure. I don't know. I think it's more information compression, just additional information used for, like for example, for search, sometimes you need multiple indices. It's not a compression. It's just preparing for different types of queries. So I wouldn't call discourse representation compression. It's additional information enrichment, not compression.
so it would improve the relevance of our answer itself.
So basically, for each text, you think of it, you add invisible additional like logical labels. You have original words for matching. You can have.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we have a number of questions online, just to take turn, if Bill can read some of those. questions.
Okay.
Some of them were from a little bit earlier. One is, can a multi-agent bot with one agent dedicated to analyzing tone, such as frustration or sarcasm, and another refining prompts, can that situation enhance our responses? And then it's like an example of frequent urination was discussed, highlighting frustration. ChatGPT adjusted its prioritization effectively. Did this approach improve how we interpret and respond to queries, moving beyond standard medical prioritization to include the emotional context?
Okay, so brief answer. Emotional context is additional, think of it additional discourse labels. Once we have these labels, and for some queries, emotional, like being emotional is irrelevant. But for some questions, when emotion is relevant, then it's additional criteria to sort out irrelevant answers.
So as a suggestion, Bill, if you're reading questions, maybe read it up here, so they don't have to be repeated.
Okay. There's another question here, but this one is short. We had some evaluations of different algorithms, and so I didn't see GPT-4 in there, and one asks, how were the evaluation of the GPT-4?
Evaluation GPT-4 would be better, but still not what I would expect. But because I didn't do, but I would expect.
I thought that would probably answer it. Yeah, you didn't have the chart, so.
Yeah, I don't have this data, but it should be better than 3.5, but not as good as specific systems trained for specific problems. But it's a good point. I should have this. I think I should have this.
Well, let's see. And there was this was more of a comment, but you have to remember it isn't the medical, this I think was the question that was asked about being cut off too soon. You cut off.
Okay, 11 seconds, okay.
Yeah. And so this person online said, you have to remember that it isn't just the medical interview, it's the labs.
Yeah, of course, yes, I mean, of course, but.
Yeah, so I think that was basically the answer to the question the gentleman there was asking. And moreover, up to 60% of ER dialogue from patients is incorrect. So anyway, I guess just kind of talking about whether it's that useful to go beyond the 11 seconds or not.
Oh, I mean, I was sarcastic. I think that's awful that it's 11 seconds. I'm totally against it. I was sarcastic. I mean, I think doctors should be disqualified for interrupting. I mean, it's important. It's a life situation. They should not interrupt at all. But for me, it was a motivation. So if doctors can do it, why cannot like reasoning system should be able to do? But I'm totally not.
I was gonna suggest we should probably wrap up, because normally we end at 8:30, we've gone a little farther to 8:45. So if there's individual questions as Boris is wrapping up, but maybe we can thank him for the talk tonight.
Thank you. And you're welcome to take home if you need the food that's on the ping pong table. It's take it or go to the trash.
Okay, so thank you, Boris. I was gonna say, you were asking a question about the discourse analysis, so they changed the behavior. And I assume if you look at.
Well, not discourse analysis, I was asking if that change in interaction